Today, we are going to talk about styles and stylistics, explore the history of stylistics, and understand its development over time. So in this video, we are going to define these terms, understand where they came from, and trace how stylistics has evolved. So let's begin by talking about style. Now, when we say style, what we mean is how something is written or spoken. It refers to the specific choices of words, sentence structures, or even the tone used by a writer or speaker. For example, you speak one way to your parents and a completely different way to your friends. Right? So that's an example of different styles. On the other hand, stylistics is the study of these styles, especially written texts. We look at how the language in a text works to create meaning or impact. Think of stylistics as a way to analyze what makes certain texts stand out or why they make us feel a certain way. For example, in a poem, we can ask, why does this line sound so beautiful? Or why this sentence make me feel sad? So stylistics helps us understand why a writer chooses certain words or sentences and how those choices affect us as a reader. So now let's go to the history of stylistics. So stylistics has a really interesting history. Yes. So back in the 19th century, when people analyzed literature, they focused a lot to the author or in the author. They thought if you understand the author's life and thoughts, you could better understand their work. But in the early 20th century, critics started to shift away from the author and began focusing on the texts itself. So two important critics, I.A. Richards and William Empson, rejected the idea that we need to know the author to understand a text. Instead, they developed something called practical criticism. So this method focused on reading the text closely, paying attention to the words and how they affected the reader. So instead of asking what was the author thinking when they wrote this, critics started asking what these words in the text make me feel or think. So this change in focus was revolutionary. It meant that anyone, even without knowing the author's background, could still engage deeply with the texts by simply paying close attention to the language. Now let's go to the development of stylistics. So as we move further into the 20th century, stylistics continued to develop. One of the major contributors was a scholar named Roman Jacobson. Yes, he, along with a group of scholars known as the Russian formalists, was more interested in the language of text and how it affected readers. One key idea they developed is called foregrounding. Yes, foregrounding. Now, foregrounding refers to the idea that some parts of a text stand out more than others because they are written in a special or unusual way. For example, if a poem repeats a certain words over and over, or if a sentence is structured in a surprising way, these features become foregrounded and catch our attention. So Jacobson later moved from Russia to Prague, where he worked with the Prague structuralists, and his ideas continued to spread. Eventually, he brought these theories to the USA, where they continued to the further development of stylistics. At the same time, in Britain, the idea of practical criticism was growing, while in the USA, a similar movement called New Criticism was emerging. Both of these movements emphasizes that the text itself, not the author, was the key to understanding literature. So they shared two key ideas. Number one, the focus should be on the language of the text, not the author's life or intentions. And number two, the best way to understand a text is through close reading, which means paying careful attention to the words and how they affect the reader. Sorry. However, what makes stylistics different from practical criticism or new criticism is that it doesn't stop at just saying how a text makes us feel. Instead, stylistics goes deeper, analyzing why certain words or sentences have the effect they do. It's not just about what we feel but it talks about how the language creates those feelings or thoughts. So let's conclude. Stylistics is an important tool that helps us understand literature by focusing on language. It shows us that texts are full of choices of words, sounds, and structures, and that these choices have specific effects on us as a readers. By studying these choices, we can better appreciate and understand the texts we read. So that's all for today for this video, and I hope that we made a clearer idea of what stylistics is. Thank you.